찰스 다윈의 명언.
Charles Darwin 1809–1882 British scientist. Theory of evolution. Charles Darwin's primary achievement was the formulation of the theory of evolution by natural selection. This groundbreaking idea, presented in his 1859 book, On the Origin of Species, revolutionized biology. It proposed that species change over time through a process where advantageous traits are favored by natural forces, leading to the diversity of life on Earth. This theory continues to be a cornerstone of modern biology, and has had a profound impact on our understanding of the natural world. Let's hear Charles Darwin's famous quotes.
A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. A man's friendships are one of the best measures of his worth. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, and not those who know much, who suppositively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science. At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. I cannot persuade myself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created parasitic wasps with the express intention of their feeding within the living bodies of caterpillars.
This sentence reflects Charles Darwin's struggle with reconciling the existence of suffering and cruelty in nature with the idea of a benevolent and all-powerful creator. He finds it hard to believe that a kind and all-knowing God would intentionally create parasitic wasps, creatures that inflict harm and suffering on caterpillars by feeding on them while they are still alive. This sentiment underscores Darwin's growing doubts about traditional religious beliefs in the face of his scientific observations of the natural world.
An American monkey, after getting drunk on brandy, would never touch it again, and thus is much wiser than most men. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. I love fools' experiments. I am always making them.
A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. I have tried lately to read Shakespeare, and found it so intolerably dull that it nauseated me. False facts are highly injurious to the progress of science, for they often endure long but false views, if supported by some evidence, do little harm, for every one takes a salutary pleasure in proving their falseness. To kill an error is as good a service as, and sometimes even better than, the establishing of a new truth or fact. We can allow satellites, planets, suns, universe, nay whole systems of universes, to be governed by laws, but the smallest insect we wish to be created at once by special act. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man with all his noble qualities still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. I have called this principle, by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved, by the term of natural selection. It is a cursed evil to any man to become as absorbed in any subject as I am in mine. A moral being is one who is capable of reflecting on his past actions and their motives, of approving of some and disapproving of others.
On the ordinary view of each species having been independently created, we gain no scientific explanation. The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us. And I for one must be content to remain an agnostic. I am turned into a sort of machine for observing facts and grinding out conclusions. How paramount the future is to the present when one is surrounded by children. I have steadily endeavored to keep my mind free so as to give up any hypothesis, however much beloved, and I cannot resist forming one on every subject, as soon as facts are shown to be opposed to it. This sentence from Charles Darwin means that he consistently tried to maintain an open and unbiased mind. He was willing to abandon any cherished idea or hypothesis he formed about a subject if the available evidence contradicted it. Darwin emphasized his commitment to changing his beliefs when confronted with facts that didn't support his hypotheses, demonstrating his dedication to scientific objectivity and the pursuit of truth. What a book a devil's chaplain might write on the clumsy, wasteful, blundering, low, and horribly cruel work of nature. Man is descended from a hairy, tailed quadruped, probably arboreal in its habits. Animals, whom we have made our slaves, we do not like to consider our equal. Man tends to increase at a greater rate than his means of subsistence. My mind seems to have become a kind of machine for grinding general laws out of large collections of facts.
오늘도 행복한 하루 보내세요. 유튜브에서 파요영어 검색으로 다른 주제 동영상도 살펴주세요. 감사합니다.